You're listening to the Trade Show Insights Podcast, Season 19, Episode 3. I'm your host and exhibit marketing strategist, Marlis Arnold, bringing you tools to improve your exhibit results. On today's episode, brought to you by the Exhibit Marketers Cafe, we're talking about wellness at events and why it matters for you and your attendees and how you can incorporate it and integrate it into your overall trade show strategy. Well, my guest today this is going to be a really fun conversation. And this is something that I don't think I've ever done on Trade Show Insights before. But my guest today is David Stevens, and he is a Silicon Valley native with more than 20 years experience in the corporate events industry. He's worked in various capacities, including agencies, nonprofit associations, experiential marketing, incentives, as well as concert and tour production. He co-founded Olympian Meeting, a wellness consulting firm for events, meetings, and conferences to help clients create impactful and meaningful experiences that drive engagement, awareness, and revenue. In addition to being a fitness enthusiast and a popular speaker on the topic of wellness, he also hosts the Return on Wellness podcast. So welcome to Trade Show Insights, David.
Hi. So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You are quite welcome. Well, like I said, this is definitely a topic that I think needs to have more discussion, especially on the trade show side of things. I know that there's a lot of discussion right now in the just general events and conference world about incorporating more wellness into events. But I want to kind of take a look at it from the trade show side and what we can be doing or what we should be doing. So talk a little bit about why is wellness at events important and what are we really talking about here? Because I think some people have when they think wellness at events, they think of a fun run or morning yoga or something like that. And I think wellness is so far beyond that, but I'll let you share what your definition of wellness at events is.
Well, I would start with understanding and the realization that wellness means different things to different people. I use the analogy of wellness to one person might be meditating and yoga. Wellness to another person might be scotch by the fire, and wellness to another person might be meditating and scotch. Like you don't know. And wellness is a relative term that means different things to different people. So it's really a matter of yes and the reason it matters is since we have come back from the great pause, people are way more demanding than they used to be. They are not willing to accept and settle for the same old stuff that we used to do. We used to run people into the ground. We used to run them ragged, treat them like robots, and just layer session after session after session on them, keep them up late, feed them a bunch of garbage food and alcohol, expect them to be up early, and then expect them to function. And people are done with it. So,
well, and I think our brains have kind of rewired a little differently as well, because we got used to doing more chill time and relaxing and taking care of ourselves during that time when there was nothing else to do.
And that's what people want.
Yeah. And so people got used to that, and that's what they expect now. They don't want to. Well, and the other thing is too, especially on the trade show side of things, I know I just recently got back from a show and just attending and walking a show. And I used to do this all the time, but it's like now it's like, I go and I spend 3 or 4 days walking a show and doing all the things and long days and everything else and being in a different time zone. I came home and I was like exhausted. I mean, I was just toast for days afterwards because my body's just not set to do that anymore. I mean, I just, it's not my usual rhythm. And so what can we be doing to really kind of, take a look at what we're doing to our attendees and our exhibitors, and how can we build, kind of engineer wellness more into the event?
Well, it starts with intention. And the whole point of wellness, it's this groundbreaking thing that happy, healthy people learn more. Oh my goodness, no way, that's real? What a
Shock.
shocker. Stop the presses. It's very basic. But when people are well fed, well slept, they're going to perform better at every level. The attendee is going to think more critically. They're going to understand what their problems are, and or they will have an epiphany if you give them the white space to have a time for a workout when they're not thinking about their problems. They're going to start coming up with solutions so that when they hit the show floor, they're going to ask the questions that are really causing their problems in their world. And vice versa, salespeople are high performance individuals, let alone most event marketers have a salesperson mindset.
Hmm.
Um, they are going to be sharper on the trade show floor as well. And those conversations are just going to be so much more productive because people have slept, because people have gotten to eat. All of those things that makes our
Exactly.
brains function makes everything better.
Well, and I hear that from exhibitors, especially exhibitors that are in small booths, and they're pretty much, maybe they have a team of 2 or 3 and they have to be in the booth the whole time. They tell me by day 3 they're so brain dead they can't even, sometimes they can't even form the words to to talk to the attendees that come to their booths. So I think that, and most trade shows, they're set up so like events start at 8 in the morning and you run until, with the parties and the after hours and the receptions, you run till 10 or 11 at night. And it's just, yeah, like you said, that's not sustainable. That's not how our bodies are wired to function. So what are some of the things that you've seen or that you recommend that can be kind of flipping the script on how we set up these events?
Yeah, I think one of those things depends on the size of your booth, right? What you can get away with. We see a lot of wellness activations at IMEX in our industry,
Hmm.
where because that is our industry's largest trade show by far. I can't think of
Right.
one that's bigger. And there were a number of things I saw. They have a wellness lounge. Um, but there's a number of exhibitors that had things in their booths to draw people to their booths. Now, my let's say accountability of the way those things have been executed is usually a little poor because they just put it in a corner and people
Yeah.
just walk up and they wait in line and there's nobody there from the exhibitor to talk to those people or demo those people or engage them while they're waiting to participate in
Yeah.
that. They just create this great line and they take pictures and they're like, look at all the people in line.
And
But
look what we did in our booth. And
right, but they're missing the mark when it comes to driving the return on investment there, right? Like they spend
hmm.
a couple grand or maybe they bring in some fancy massage chair or something. And like there was one I sat in a massage chair. They had the compression recovery things for your legs,
Oh,
and
right.
they had a red light mask and oxygen. And I was like, okay, this is
Oh my
awesome.
goodness.
And you sit there for 10 minutes.
Wow.
So you have to wait 10 minutes before the next person comes. I stood there for 20 minutes waiting for my turn. And the
Yeah.
only person I engaged with was the technician who was operating all the stuff because I
Oh,
was hammering
yeah.
her with questions about is this snake oil or whatever. But completely missed it. So
Yeah.
that's one option. But let's say you want to throw a party, right? Because people do parties and dinners and whatnot. You could do one where you're like, oh, we found this restaurant that does nothing but locally sourced food that's sustainable. Because thinking about sustainability, people, planet, profit, profit comes from thinking about those other two things, and then people
Mhm.
remember you. So you could do a dinner that's slightly different and is inclusive to people who don't want to drink alcohol
Mhm.
and lets them be a part of the party with some type of calorically conscious mocktail and let them go home and go to bed. If you're participating in the room drop, which some people do, put some sleep stuff in there. Put like an
Mm,
eye mask or some lavender oil or something that encourages people to sleep. Like I came from the data space. Something about like data worries got you up late at night. With so and so, we help you solve that. And right now, you can use this to fall asleep tonight. Whatever, something like that,
right.
right? Or in your booth, you could do something, or you could even have an offsite event that's a spa or something. People are probably going to blow off a session for a free massage. So there's a number of different things that you can do that are going to promote that. But I think the point being is when you get people together, give them an opportunity that is going to let them recharge. And I came out of the gate very hot with my energy, sorry. As opposed to just one more thing for them to do. My thing at trade shows is always, is this thing we're going to do good enough for them to cancel their other plans for?
Mm,
Because that's at a conference, at a big show like a Gartner DNA, there's no shortage of parties. So who
right.
cares about yours? What makes yours special? And wellness is a way to do that.
Well, and I like how you said that it needs to be like an integrated part of an exhibit or of your whole marketing strategy at the show rather than just throwing something into the booth. I know I've seen exhibitors in the past that they create like a whole wellness theme in their booth where they have, like the plant walls and maybe a water feature and, stuff that just is definitely very relaxing. And then maybe like the giveaway would be like the little the wooden massagers that you can, just hold in your hand and rub your back or your legs or whatever. So things like that, that it ties it all together. And like you said, you can tie that in with whatever theme, like, we help you relax and get your work done, or, depending on what
Like,
the product
I'm all
is,
stuck on
there's,
this sleep thing now. And I'm like,
yeah.
if you went with that, is your data stressing you out or whatever? And like your
Stop
whole
losing sleep over your data recovery or,
right. And the
whatever.
whole team is in pajamas in the
Yeah.
booth. You have like a nap pod that's silent and not behind a DJ booth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a whole other backstory of something we talked about before we started recording. But yeah, thinking about what ties in together and not and being congruent, and not sending mixed messages, I think is a really important thing to keep in
Yeah,
mind.
if you're doing let's say you have a 20 by 20 booth and it's all about, I don't know, data discovery or whatever it is you're doing, and then there's just a massage chair in the booth, like that's good old wellness washing. Like you're just like, hey, want to get off your feet? This is just our hook to get you to come sit down. But then the truth of the matter is they don't want to talk to you anyways. So when they're in the chair, but you should be working that line.
Yeah. And that exactly. That's what I tell exhibitors all the time. It's like, no, and if you've got a chair massage or whatever you've got, for the actual activity in the booth, no, you don't. That's kind of defeating the whole point. If you're talking to somebody the whole time they're going to get chair massage, they're probably not relaxing. But working the line, I mean, that's the whole point of why you want a line in your booth, is because you've got a captive audience that then you can talk to.
100%. I think a
So
lot of people miss that mark.
yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned wellness washing. Tell us what that I think that's such a we talk about greenwashing in the sustainability world, but talk about wellness washing. What are some of the things that you've seen and why how can we avoid that?
Yeah. So the reason I use that term is because I spent a number of years as a part of the Green Meetings Industry Council. And I also sat on the board of the Green Meeting Industry Council, Northern California chapter. So sustainability is near and dear to my heart and something I've been practicing for years. We're actually having a pool put in right now, and it's made out of a recycled shipping container. So that is something I don't just believe in, it's something we do. But sustainability, people, planet, profit.
Mhm.
We focus so much on the planet portion, which I'm not saying we shouldn't. Thinking about what our booths are made out of, the trade show industry is the second largest producer of waste in the world after construction, because we're temporary construction. I'm
True.
really surprised we're not the first. But we don't focus on the sustainability of people. And when you have, oh, hey, the trade show is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but we have this fun run at 5 a.m. No,
No.
no, no, no. You are phoning it in. You're putting a check in the box. It's just like changing the color of your product to be green so that people think
Mhm.
it's sustainable. But like, you're not thinking about the overall day that somebody has to do. Those kinds of that's really it's when somebody's using wellness for an insincere marketing purpose
Mhm.
over anything else. Like just throwing that massage chair in there. That's not wellness. That's just a massage chair. But
Yeah,
don't
it's a
call it wellness.
gimmick.
It's a gimmick. It's it's
Yeah.
it's um it's exactly what it is. It's wellness washing.
Yeah.
But if you're doing something where you're talking about is your data keeping you up at night and you integrate that into your whole campaign, and not only do you put sleep masks in the bag with or in the room drop with like lavender oil. And by the way, if anyone rips this off, please let me know because I'd love to know how it worked. And your people in your booth are there in pajamas, and I don't know, you're people entering people to win a sound machine, and like think about it all the way through, right
Mhm.
from pre-event to post-event. How is that actually connecting the dots? And are you behaving in a way that is supporting what you're trying to promote that ties that all together so that it shows that you're sincere about it? And if you do a party, does it go till 1 o'clock in the morning, even though you're telling people that they're supposed to get sleep?
Yeah, exactly.
Or did you do like an early dinner with light foods that are thoughtful so that people can go home afterwards and get a good night's sleep? So
Yeah.
that's it's about the intentionality of it and not speaking out of both sides of your mouth.
Well, and just thinking it all through and not, like you said, not just going, "Oh, let's throw a massage chair in the booth." It's like, let's think this whole picture through and how can we just tie it all together and bring it together on so many different levels. I want to talk a little bit about just you talked about the sustainability of people and the taking care of people at the event. I think that's another area where trade shows really need to stop, organizers need to really stop and look at this because two of the biggest complaints I always hear from exhibitors and attendees is there's not enough places to sit and rest and take a break, and then the other thing is there's not places or options to eat healthy at a trade show because a lot of convention centers are not within walking distance of a lot of restaurants. A lot of them
That's
it's
by
like,
design.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's so that's pretty much it's like you got to eat whatever it's at the convention center, which brings up two problems. First of all, the options are not great. If I'm just trying to find a salad or a smoothie or something like that, sometimes that's a real challenge at a convention center. But the other thing is, it's like it never ceases to amaze me. You have a convention with thousands of people, and you have a food court in the convention center that seats maybe
100.
250 at the most. I mean, it's like, okay, let's think this through. There's a, and so again, the show that I was recently at, there was so many people standing outside, holding a salad or something in their hand, standing up because there was nowhere to sit. So they're standing outside trying to eat, it was just, it's like, this is not working. So what
Let
are some of the things that we can kind of unpack about how to try to solve that?
Well, I think if you're running a trade show, you really need to be mindful of what it's like to be an attendee at that trade show. And that attendee is usually there's two essential things they're doing, right? They're going to sessions to learn, and they're going to the booths to learn as well.
Mhm.
So if you're not arming them with the things they need to learn, you're undermining their success, which is undermining your success. So when it comes to food, you need to offer foods that support people's brain health. You need to let people eat the things that they would eat when they're at home, including protein. That's
Right.
my big beef, pun intended.
Yeah.
So here's a fun fact. 25% of the population identifies as being neurodiverse. which includes ADD, ADHD, etc.
Mhm.
There are some homeopathic studies. I bring this up because one of the co-authors of the white paper we did on food was food was one of the things, but we did a white paper about wellness and events and how it impacts them. Was a medical doctor, so I went to go find peer-reviewed, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't found it yet, but
Hmm.
this is what I'm getting to. Protein first thing in the morning can help people with ADD and ADHD pay attention. And the only reason I know this is I used to work with a software engineer, and he said anytime I had a high protein breakfast, I didn't need my meds. He didn't say I didn't have to
Interesting.
take them. He said I didn't need them
Hmm.
because he felt focused enough. So think about what's on your breakfast, right? You spent how much for your keynote speaker? And if you're feeding people continental breakfast only, and that's all the options there are, and they can't even go spend $35 for an omelet, because let's face it, that's how much an omelet would be at a convention center,
Yeah.
or something of that nature. If you're inhibiting them from getting the breakfast they need or want or desire, you are undermining your own success of your keynote speaker. Let alone they're going to be cranky going into the trade show and not going to be enjoyable to
For
be
the
around
whole day. Yeah.
the whole day. Then my biggest beef a lot of times with trade shows was exhibitors having the time to eat ourselves. They're
Yes.
like, oh, lunch is at 12 to 1:30. And I'm like, so when do the exhibitors eat? Well, 12 to 1:30. But the attendees are eating. We need to be in our booth
Well, and
talking
that's
to
when
all
the
these people.
and so many groups do it where, the show the exhibit hall is open during the attendees lunch break, and so that's when the flood of attendees come in to walk the show. So the exhibitors can't go take a lunch break because they have to be in their booth because that's when the
That's when the
crowd
people are
is.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let your exhibitors eat before you open regular lunch. I've seen a couple shows do that, and I love them for it.
Mhm.
That's super helpful. But I think food is one of those things that is really missing when it comes to inclusivity. Because here's what I mean, you talked about in the very beginning. Here's what happens when you don't offer the right food. People leave.
Mhm.
That's the last thing you want. If you're holding a big trade show and your attendees are going off site because they can't find what they eat or they can't find what they want to eat at your trade show, let's think about what that means, right?
Yeah.
They're gone, less foot traffic,
Mhm.
exhibitors aren't happy, less deals in pipeline. Like it just rolls downhill. Same thing with that's why they're like, please don't have parties at during our happy hour in the evening. Don't have
Mhm.
dinners that start at 5 because we're doing happy hour in the exhibit hall. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, well then feed people
Yeah.
because they're hungry and they
Yeah.
leave because you're not feeding them. And they go to the dinners because they're not going to get fed at your happy hour.
Right.
It's not rocket science here.
Right.
It is
Or they've just
neuroscience.
or
But
they've just shut down and they can't do any more on the show floor. They need to just leave and go, because you talked about the neurodiverse. I mean, there are a lot of the introverts or people that just can't handle all the chaos of the show floor and everything. They go back to their hotel room and crash for a while because they just literally they are spent. I mean, after they've spent a whole day in sessions walking the show floor, they are battery zero.
especially with the agendas we put out there,
Yeah.
it's nuts. We treat people like they're robots, not like they're humans.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's also constructed to where the attendees almost feel guilty. It's like, oh, well, there's still this 3 other events going on this evening that I really should go to. I'm exhausted. I really want to go back to my hotel room, but I really should go to these other things. So it's like we're kind of like forcing this on them of they feel guilty if they don't take advantage of everything that's going on.
I mean, I guess they can. Speaking of IMAX earlier, there's this one night called Rendezvous, which is a big fundraiser party, but they charge for the ticket. And last year, someone's like, "Oh, when are you getting to Rendezvous?" I'm like, "I'm not going to Rendezvous." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm going to bed." And they're like, "I'm
Yeah.
sorry, what? You're not going to like everybody goes to that?" And I'm like, "I don't care. I'm going to bed." Like,
Yeah.
I I think I don't know if it's because of this idea that I've really leaned into or whatnot, but like I choose me over everything else. And well, not everything else, but self-care isn't selfish. And if you're tired,
Mm.
go to your room.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like one of those I do in my workouts. It's kind of like there's a time to keep moving, and there's also a time for rest where if you rest for 10 seconds, you can get back to work and work at a higher capacity than if you just keep going. There's some movements that it doesn't really matter. Like you just kind of grind it out. There's other things where you're like, if I don't rest, I'm going to hurt myself. So I'm going to take a moment,
Hmm.
take a beat, recover for a hot second, and then get back to it. It's the same thing with all of this. It's a matter of knowing yourself well enough to know how to pace yourself so that you don't just give up.
Yeah. And choosing what we'll call them the extracurricular activities, choosing those wisely so that you don't just burn yourself out on day 1 or 2 and so that you can't make it through the whole week of the whole event.
And if they suck, leave.
Yeah,
Don't be
exactly.
afraid. I went to I was at an industry conference and trade show last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't know. It's all blurry. But I went to a tech happy hour, and like their happy hour is just like a room with a bar and food. I was there for 10 minutes. I'm like,
Yeah.
they give no, what's. And I'm like, all right, I'm out. And I just left. And they're
Yeah.
like, leaving already? I'm like, there's no reason for me to stay.
Yeah, there was no benefit in it for you. You get your free food and you leave, right?
Yeah. And the food wasn't even that good. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to we talk about, the whole blending of people and planet. So I want to talk a little bit more on the other side of the sustainability, what we would call the traditional sustainability of the green and how we can make our events more environmental. So talk a little bit about how some of those disconnects and how the whole people and planet can come together and we can be benefiting both sides of those at the same time.
Yeah. I think one of the things it's the same thing about intentionality. We did, I know I've talked about this before. I don't know that I've shared it with this audience. Um, we did a booth one time that was made completely out of cardboard, 100% out of cardboard. The best part was, and this tied in all three things together, right? One, it was incredibly eye catching. Like we blew our
Yeah.
numbers out of the water at that show, in everywhere from scan to pipeline to closed one verified, like across the board. Boom, boom, boom. Um, it was a replica of the Apollo 11 lunar lander, and we had little mini ones that were cardboard ones. And of course, everyone's like, "Oh, I have 87 children. I need a lot of them." And we're like, "Oh, actually, we're only giving out one per person." And they'd say, "Well, why? What do you mean? Why can't I have one? I have 2 kids. I don't want them to fight." And we're like, "Well, we didn't get to the moon by working in silos. So this is a life learning moment. So we're giving these to people so that they can teach their kids how to work together as a team."
Team building.
Yeah, how do you like that? Because we knew they were going to fly.
Yeah.
So we were able to kind of check off. We checked off all three of those things with that sustainability effort. Because one, there's the planet. Everything, the entire booth was recyclable.
Mm-hmm.
It was able to go right into the recycle bins. It was cardboard only, and we didn't wrap it and stuff. We used signage that we flew above, and we got a bunch of free lighting from the show because they're like, "This is so awesome." And we heard people. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm standing by the spaceship. Come meet me here." Whatever. It
Cool.
it did what it was supposed to do from a sustainability aspect around planet, um, because it was a zero waste booth.
Yeah.
And our giveaways were zero waste as well. From a people standpoint, we worked in shifts so that nobody got burnt out. We ran 4-hour shifts so that people could maintain their regular work and or would
Mm-hmm.
be highly energetic when they were there. They weren't too tired. They were able to sleep. They were able to eat. They were able to get done what they needed to do from a
Right.
people standpoint. And from a profit standpoint, like I said, it was cheaper than any booth we had ever built before. The entire thing that was a scale model was on one pallet, and our drayage was next to nothing because it was
Mm-hmm.
400 pounds total. It was flat pack. So
And
drayage
nothing to
was,
ship back.
we didn't have to ship it back. It came in once, it was done. And it was so eye-catching that it drove pipeline like nobody's business. So it checked all three of the sustainability boxes when we did that show.
But again, I think the key to all of this was very intentional, very strategic. You didn't just go, oh, let's build this booth out of cardboard. You actually thought through all the stages of what are we wanting to accomplish? How can we best do that? What can we do that's going to be more sustainable? What can we do that's going to be more creative and build the buzz and get people talking and all that kind of thing. So you thought through it from all the angles. You didn't just go, oh, let's throw together a booth made out of cardboard.
Yeah, and the reason self-care is so important is because when you're thinking about what you would want, how many hours do you want to work? Do you only want to work 6? Don't you think everyone else would only want to work 4?
Mm-hmm.
When you start thinking about your own self-care, it empowers you to think about others. Unless you're being a selfish jerk and you're like, well, I only want to work 4 hours, so I'm gonna make this person work 10. That's not how most of us are. We're
No.
we're caregivers. And we ignore our own well-being for anything. And we go, well, I'm working 12 hours. Why can't they work 12 hours? Then you're in the death spiral, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, no. How many hours do you want to work? 6? Okay, cool. So then nobody else in the booth should work more than 6 either.
Mm-hmm.
That's why self-care is so important. The whole adage of, you can't pour from a broken cup, or you can't fill others from a broken cup because it's empty, right? That's why self-care matters, is because when you're looking out for yourself and your well-being and you're putting that as a barometer for the rest of your decisions, you're inherently going to look out for those around you.
Right. Right.
And
True.
people are going to love you for it.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're putting off that energy of, hey, we're looking out for you, we're caring for you, and people are drawn to that because
Oh,
so few people do that anymore. The visibly, not just talk, but actually visibly, physically do show care for others.
exactly. One of the other things I used to do, but that's just because it was me and people know I'm super into fitness, is people would owe burpees for every minute they were late. And if they were early, I owed them burpees.
Oh,
So they
wow.
had some skin in the like. So what if
Yeah,
I show up 15 minutes late or 15 minutes early? I'm like, okay, look, let's take it easy. I
yeah.
got a shift to work here, but if you're here 5 minutes early, I will give you 50 burpees.
Wow.
And vice versa. I'm like, for every minute you're late, it's 10 burpees. And they're like, yeah, okay, I'll be on time.
Yeah,
It
I bet.
works.
I bet they were on time, yeah. It's like there's that incentive there to make sure that they're, focused on what they're supposed to be doing. Well, David, thank you so much. I mean, there are so many more levels we could drill down into on this, but I think this is a great way to start the conversation of some of the things that both show organizers and exhibitors need to be thinking about when they're putting together their show schedules of how, what needs to be considered and what needs to be restructured in the way that they do things. So, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Probably LinkedIn is the easiest. David T. Stevens on LinkedIn. I'm also one of the co-founders of a website called Conference Pro. It's myconferencepro.com. And it is a Yelp for trade shows where exhibitors get to write reviews of conferences.
Oh,
So if you're interested in that, go check out my Conference Pro, and go ahead and leave a review of your favorite and least favorite show. You have to have a LinkedIn profile so that we know all reviews are real and not shenanigans. And
mhm.
you can leave an anonymous review if you're not comfortable with that, because we know the industry is small, but you still have to log in with your LinkedIn address so that we know it's a legitimate review.
Well, that sounds fair. Well, that sounds very intriguing. So, we'll put a link to that in the show notes so people can go check that out as well. And to also see some of your other writings and musings on some of the different things that we've talked about, because I know you have a wealth of material that you've created over the years. So, thank you so much for being part of Trade Show Insights and sharing your background and your perspective on this, because I think this is something that definitely needs more conversation happening on the trade show side of events.
Yep. Help your attendees help you.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like more, you can subscribe to the Trade Show Insights podcast and automatically receive future episodes on your chosen device. Simply search for Trade Show Insights in Apple, Spotify, or virtually anywhere else that podcasts are found, then click the subscribe button. Trade Show Insights is protected by the Creative Commons copyright license. You may feel free to share this recording with colleagues or embed it on your own blog as long as it's shared in its entirety and is not used for commercial purposes. To learn more, please see the link in the sidebar of the show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. Well, that's it for this episode of Trade Show Insights. Be sure to check out our show notes and archives at tradeshowinsights.com. You can also connect with me using the social media links or the contact page on the site. I'm Marlis Arnold. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time for more tools to improve your exhibit results.